Welcome to Strength in the Numbers. My name is Andrew Codd, accountant, author, and commercial finance entrepreneur, and it's my job each week to bring you leaders in finance and business and deconstruct with them their real stories, insights, and hard-won lessons into practical advice on the key strengths and qualities you need to remain relevant in accounting and finance today, as well as the steps you can begin to take to elevate the impact you make to have a fun, successful, and rewarding career in accounting and finance. Now let's go over to the show. Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Strength in the Numbers. Now, can we say that we all know what's the right mindset to have towards our finance careers? I mean, not in theory, but in practice. To not merely become more influential as a finance professional and solve meaningful problems for our organisations, but how also to have a fun, rewarding career in accounting and finance. To gain a sense of what this right mindset might look like, we've prepared a special episode where we share with you how 4 of our previous guest mentors have found mindsets that have worked in their finance careers, the results they've learned in doing so, why they did what they did, the impacts it had on them, their careers, their colleagues and organisation, and they share with you some ideas on how you can perhaps do the same in your careers or similarly add value for your organisations. So the guest mentors we have on today's show are Angelo Ho, who's a Senior Vice President and Principal Accounting Officer at Ocean First Bank. And Angela's advice is pretty useful for young female executives wishing to progress their careers, why it's important to be clear about and share your goals with others, and also how to remain goal orientated but not lose sight of what's important in life as well. Our next bit of insight from our guest mentors is from Nigel Franklyn, and I really enjoyed having Nigel on the show. He's Vice President of Financial Reporting and Controllership at Prudential's international insurance business. He shares a great concept around Me Inc. that's got 3 parts, and he deconstructs those for us on the call. And he also describes one daily habit he does at the start of every day, the benefits of Stoic philosophy, and also observer theory, and why it's perhaps an important mindset to have as finance professionals in our careers. Our next guest is a really fun and playful Glin Bayley, who's a holistic performance coach that works with individuals, entrepreneurs, and organizations to drive better performance. And Glin had an amazing career as an accomplished head of finance and business strategy before that, and she deconstructs for us what really matters with regard to our next career move, a practical way to become a linchpin in finance on a daily basis, and also a mindset of having empathy and having the right assumptions around the insights that we have. And finally, one of our earliest guests, Andy Burrows, the founder and CEO of superchargedfinance.com, shares why we need to shift our mindsets to be a bit more outward looking. And also, one of my favourite topics is how we can be more curious in accounting and finance to add value. So look, this episode is jam-packed with great advice, and I know there's going to be something in there from each of the 4 guest mentors we've had on in the past. So it'll be really worth your time listening in on this one. So I'll get off the mic now so you can listen to more of the show. So without further ado, over to our guest mentors and the show.
There is merit to being hardworking. You do, we do have to show that first. Being hardworking, being committed to your career. Hey, and maybe my path is not similar to all female accounting and finance professionals, but I think that treating yourself as an equal to a male, speaking just as loudly, if not louder, than the men in your organization, or even outside, and knowing that you do bring value to the conversation. I mean, there are so many articles out there talking about how, hey, you know what, companies with more females on their boards have higher stock returns, and how there is a real shortfall of female board members. And certainly, so there's an awareness in the marketplace of this, of sort of this, if you want to call it an issue. And so, the issue or the shortfall has been identified. So the opportunity is ours to seize it. And so if that is a goal of yours, and it certainly is of mine, make it known, tell as many people as you can that, hey,
Definitely.
Look, I do want to serve on a board, whether it's a nonprofit or, if you want to be a paid board member, And if it is your goal to be in the C-suite, be clear about what it is that you want and what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
It shouldn't be a secret, right? Because
No,
the
it
more
shouldn't be.
people that know about your goals and aspirations, if something comes down the pike, then you'll be top of mind for them to reach out to, right? So, building your brand and really putting it out there.
Well, exactly. I mean, look, if you've taken the time to invest in building good quality relationships at work, people like you, and you let them know what opportunities you're interested for, it's just like any business that where people get referred or businesses get referred, you'll be top of mind. So
Mm-hmm.
it's really good practical advice. I mean, and how hard is that, like, to follow up, for our audience? So I encourage everyone, listening to this podcast to follow through what Angelus has shared with us. I mean, that's just good common sense, but sometimes you just need to hear it or have it reinforced for us that this is doable, this is achievable.
Yeah,
So,
totally. And if I can add,
yeah,
because
go
this
on,
is
yeah.
top of mind for me, don't be afraid of being a bitch at work. And
Strong
what I
words.
mean by that is you don't need to be a jerk, but the confidence thing, and sometimes it's important to show that, hey, what you say is what you mean, and especially, women versus men. Generally speaking, especially for me, it's a personal challenge to speak in literally a louder volume, and sort of command that equal presence. Uh, it's important to believe in yourself and to be committed every day as you as you present yourself. And so if there's something you believe very strongly in, don't be afraid to back down. And what's helpful is to perhaps build a support group as you go into these battles,
Yes.
before outside before you do get into the meeting room. And so you have support when you do enter the room.
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing. But then those support groups have come from all the work that's been done on the relationships and people understanding
Yes.
your value. Because then,
Yes.
again, I think when it comes to speaking a bit louder, that's just demonstrating the integrity that our profession and our position within our company's demands. I mean, we're there to ensure completeness and accuracy, and that's just integrity of the business, underlying business numbers. And in terms of having integrity to ourselves, it's just living our purpose and living who we want to be and being ourselves. So that's why I just don't see any issue with doing that. But some of us have cowered away from perhaps best representing ourselves and what we can offer in those moments. And just to share with our listeners, don't be afraid. And only good
Yeah.
things will tend to happen in the longer run from those things. So that's a great advice, Angela. I'd love to sort of jump into some other questions. Before I do, like you did mention earlier, you're fairly goal orientated. So, when it comes to the career and succeeding, how do you then not lose sight of perhaps what's important in life as well?
That's a very good question. So while, my work and career is very important to me, and I think what I've recently realized is, and I can gist with, spending some time self-reflecting.
Mm-hmm.
Time outside of the office is just as important, if not more important. See, if you're not healthy mentally or physically, then you cannot be your best self in the office.
Definitely.
And so it's so important to recharge, and to really, I, I found it quite helpful to truly separate, my time outside of the office and, my time in the office. And sure, there are times when there needs to be some overlap, but if you are being fully rejuvenated, and recharged when you're not at work, then you'll I think just overall you'll be a better performer when you are in the office. And so, it depends on what works for you. But for me to be unplugged when I'm not here, it really helps me perform at a much higher level when I am sitting at my desk. Um, and so my personal relationships, friendships, family, uh, mental health, physical health are very important to me. And when those things start to slide, so does my performance at work. And so, I'm not necessarily talking about living a balanced life,
Hmm. Hmm.
because this it's not possible to live a balanced life. It's, I think, just what's important to you at a particular point in time. And so it's it's really being self-aware and knowing what is critical to you. And so if someone in your family is sick, and if more time needs to be devoted there, make that known to your employer, to your boss, to your team. And look, people love to help, and people are
Yeah,
good human beings.
so true.
And if that's what you need, people will support you. And there are times when that will shift, right? Someone else on your team may need additional support, and I'm sure that you will rise to the occasion when that, or if that were to happen. And so that's what being a team is about.
Me Inc. is more so a conversation in self leadership, maximizing my current potential, or the participants' current potential, and just understanding how self care, self mastery, all those things are very, very important in ensuring that you show up your best self every day, right? I think in some of the reading I've been doing within the last year, it was saying that, sometimes we always make the worst of situations, but the one thing that's with us through every experience is ourselves, right? So, sometimes you're unhappy in one place and you get up and you go to someplace else figuring you'll be happier. But if you haven't changed and you're the same person who's going along, you're going to be just as unhappy, right? So the
Definitely.
Me Inc. conversation is kind of just how I've gone about my daily walk over the last couple of years, and I've been lucky enough. I've transitioned from one job to another, through new experiences, through just interactions with different people, introduction to emotional intelligence, finding out what motivates me, and where I landed on at the end of the, I think, and for accountants, it's in three segments, right? It's your mind, body, and your soul, right? And these are the
Mm.
things that you have to make sure you're fueling on a daily basis, or taking care of on a daily basis, to make sure that you're the best you. And I should just, as I back into it, I think your body is the vehicle, right? I mean, that's the only thing that's going to carry you through this experience called life. And if you're not taking care of your vehicle, then you're gonna run out of steam at some point. The mind stuff, it is a muscle. It is something that you have to keep working on. And one of the cool things that I recently learned was the observer theory, right? Is that
All
basically
right.
your mind creates your reality, or your
Mm-hmm.
reality will morph based on kind of who is actually observing it. So if I'm going in every day at work thinking, I hate my job, then I'm going to make the experience that are going to follow me through that day are going to be experiences that's going to confirm my outlook that I hate my job, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
the soul aspect of it is just the things that make you feel good. So not the churchy aspect of it, but if that's your thing, it could be. But the things that would make you feel good about what you're doing, right? So Andrew, just a quick one for you. If you were just to smile now, right? Just you don't have to do anything, but just if you just smile, no matter where you're at, it makes you feel better, right? Like
Oh, completely.
just
And like even when you look smile at someone,
right.
like what are you transferring to them, right?
Yeah, so it's amazing, right? So that was the concept. The Me Inc. portion of it is how you're investing in yourself daily, and what it was just kind of also going through some mindset changes, driving self awareness. And when I say driving self awareness, it's like understanding that it's like sleep, diet, and exercise are the only ways that you can modulate your energy system. So if you're not feeding those things on a daily basis, or if you're not feeding them from time to time, you cannot show up your best self, right? You can't be your best self if you're not feeling good. you can't be your best self if you're in a horribly emotional state. I don't know if you do you know people who are like, you're like, how is it possible that you can wake up angry, or how is it possible for you to be so angry this early in the morning, right? So
I would hold my hand up. I have to say, it's not really so much the case now, but definitely I know earlier in my career I was getting very frustrated
yeah.
in terms of the promotions weren't coming as fast as I wanted, the recognition wasn't there, and I know some of our audience have definitely felt like that as well. So like, look, I think I've sort of nailed it, covered it a bit, but from your perspective, Nigel, like, have you got any sort of practical tips or maybe steps that some of our audience could follow who might be in that scenario to help them through it and actually not be as sort of frustrated and have a negative mindset for the day?
It's like I try to start my day the same way every day, and some people are actually surprised by this. But I wake up and the first thing I do is read. I think your brain's the most pliable at that point in the morning. So think of it this way, right? So if I read 10 pages a day, I can read a 200-page book every month, give or take some days off. So I read first thing. Then I exercise for a little bit. After my exercise, I generally listen to something positive, which gets you in the right place. Sometimes that's repeating the same video, the same song over and over again, which gets me into a good place. And on the really, really bad days when, I'm a little tired, I may not be in the best mental state, or I'm dragging a bit that morning, I actually try to listen to something inspirational, right? So it can be something about, an affirmation or anything else, right? Before, I used to sit quietly for a little bit before I went about my day to get myself in the right mind frame. So it was just, people would say meditation. I would say just sitting and breathing deeply for a little bit, which is quite interesting, right? It's so simple. It's probably the one thing that your body doesn't leave to you as well, but you can just sit and make sure that you're in a calm, collected place before you go about the day. And then there are just different things. Recently, for me, I've been reading a lot about Stoic philosophy,
Oh, interesting.
and the dichotomy of control, which actually puts you in a very, very good place, right? Because there are just so many things that are out of your control, and there's nothing you can actually do about it, right? So you can choose to be angry at every turn, or you can just choose to accept it. Now, I'm not saying be complacent, but
Exactly.
you can choose your response to a lot of it. So it's a little bit different than what most people would say, but I think essentially what I'm saying is that there's a perspective that you'd have to try to cultivate. And if you're cultivating that right mindset, you can be fine, along the way, right?
Time has always been the measure that most of us have used to go, if I do 2 to 3 years, that's deemed to be appropriate. But realistically, what is appropriate? This is your one shot at living your life. You get to choose where you're headed. And as long as you're adding value, as you've just mentioned, and you've got really clear deliverables and you're surpassing them, then I don't see that there's any issue in moving sooner than a time frame that someone else may or may not have decided is appropriate for you.
I completely agree. And one thing, but you sort of said you add value, I think we're probably kindred spirits on that one, because I read a recent article you wrote about being a linchpin.
Yes.
And like I would sort of say, be irreplaceable or be vital, as opposed to someone that is replaceable. So like, what do you mean if you were to sort of say to our audience being a linchpin? What does that mean in your mind?
For me, it's about, and I love Seth Godin. But for me, that book was really about understanding what does it take to be indispensable and how do you be remarkable on a daily basis? Because I think we can get ourselves into a rut of going, okay, I've got my objectives for the year. I may or may not have regular check-ins with my leader. I may or may not have a mid-year performance review, but I know I'll have my year-end one where I'll have to talk about what I've delivered in the year. And, can I think back to the last month of what I've delivered? And can I really remember what I've done for the last year to warrant an outstanding grade? And for me, being a linchpin doesn't wait till that 12-month mark before you start assessing your performance. It's about going, okay, if I was to perhaps start the year as if I was going to give myself an A, for my performance for the entire year, what qualities would I need to be demonstrating throughout the entire year to be delivering an A performance? And if you can have that mindset to go, okay, that's what an A performance looks like, or an A star, or wherever the grading is at the top of the chain now, you're looking at it going, okay, well, what will that need me to do, and how would that need me to show up in order to deliver? And that's what, for me, being a linchpin is about. It's surprising and delighting people. It's going out of your way to make an impact, because recognizing that in today's world, especially with the digital evolution, the map that we once had, that we were encouraged to follow, is being diminished. And what linchpin really is stating is, you now need to create your own map. You need to determine where you fit and how you add value, and also demonstrate to the organization that you are indispensable. So when it comes to making choices about humans or robots, it's a no-brainer when it comes to you, because you've demonstrated that your ability to connect the dots, your insight, your ability to leverage relationships is far superior than any artificial intelligence is going to be doing. So that, for me, is what being a linchpin is about. And I would say that's probably one of the things that's helped me in my career, is about widening the scope of your impact. So don't limit it just to finance. You know, you're a finance expert, you're qualified, you've got the examination results and the letters behind your name to prove your credibility in the field, but allow yourself to widen your scope and think, okay, well, I've got credibility here, but how can I build credibility elsewhere? And I do that by being more empathetic. And in my case, spending time with sales guys the majority of my commercial finance days, and recognizing that often, many thoughts would travel through my mind, some of them complimentary, some of them not so complimentary. And I think, why on earth do they do what they do? And it's only when you allow yourself to go, okay, if I saw what they saw, if I knew what they knew, if I believed what they believed, would I be making the decision they're making? And 9 times out of 10, the answer is yes. So if you can allow yourself to really understand and get behind their thinking behind a decision or a choice made, it allows you to really start going, okay, well, what can I do to influence their worldview? What new information and knowledge can I present and share such that I can change the insight that they have around the decision they make? How can I show up as a partner rather than someone who's just a challenger, and say, actually, we've got the same goal here, but we're coming at it from different perspectives, and how might we do that in a way that's more effective? And I just think, certainly from my own experience in finance, is that it's so easy to be a bit more black and white in our thinking, because a lot of the way we've been taught through our program is, there's a formula, we can figure things out, and we've got insight. And also sometimes I think we forget how much we know, and you assume other people have got the same lens and the same knowledge and the insight that you have. And I think, so if you can allow yourself to go, well, these individuals that I'm trying to partner with haven't had the same training or discipline in the background I have. They don't see the world the way I see it because of my own experience. So how can I give them a bit of insight into what I know and what I see and what I believe, and therefore why that leads to a different decision than they're making, and jointly work together to go, okay, these are where our worldviews differ. Empathy is a huge one in finance. If you can find more empathetic finance folk, I think the impact that we would have across the organisation would be immense.
My view would be that we need to focus more on driving business value and kind of become a little bit more outward looking, as in, if we see ourselves as driving business performance, we're all about supporting the business, driving the business, protecting the business and its performance. If we start being more outward looking, and what can we help the business with to help it to add more value, to make more profit, more cash, etc., then I think we'll become more valuable to the business. And I think that mindset shift is what we need more than sort of cost-cutting finance transformation type programs. I've developed a bit of a bugbear with transformation programs that just try to make finance cheaper. And actually, it gives the wrong impression. I think finance can be a lot more value by what it does rather than, cutting down the number of people who are in it. Within reason. I mean, we do need to be efficient. I think it's that mindset shift.
Yeah, and actually, it's funny. In terms of the customers themselves, I do work with SMEs as well, and also involved in some commercial negotiations with larger companies. And really, I think there's a mindset change in businesses themselves, looking more towards the outcomes that companies or service providers are adding to them or delivering for them. And maybe finance isn't immune from that. It may be an internal department that, as you said, it's sort of really involved in a lot of other parts of the business and functions, and we get that visibility and involvement, but we really need to look at the outcomes we're driving, and maybe that's where the performance angle comes back in. And I'm just trying to think, in your experience, Andy, is there one key habit or strength or quality we need to be developing so that we can get on that outcomes journey where we actually are adding some value, some tangible outcome or output for the business that we can hang our hats on?
I think in terms of habits, it's a case of being curious about how the business works. So if you're working for a business, and no matter what your position in finance, it doesn't matter really whether you're in a financial accounting role or an FP&A role. I think having that curiosity about how the business works will eventually sort of grow into adding value, because you start thinking about, why are we doing this? How is this adding value to the business? How is it increasing profit? What are the benefits? And certainly when you start getting involved in change projects as well, sort of like, why are we spending this money on this change project? Well, it's to deliver a benefit or a number of benefits which will enhance the performance of the business. So let's focus on the benefits and the performance of the business. So I think it's getting into the habit, and that involves talking to people within the business, finding out what they do and how they do it. Like you say, I had to have an interest in marketing around the sort of interim management. But even within the business, it's sort of, how are we marketing ourselves? And how do we get sales? How do we work out how to price products? What are the products giving to our customers? And start to think about the risks in the market. Are those products at risk of being taken, being out of date, or is technological advance going to come along and make it obsolete or stuff like that? Always thinking all the time.
So there you have it. Hope you enjoyed today's show. If you'd like to know more about our guests today, their bio, and follow up on the resources mentioned during the show, you can find all the relevant links and more at sitnshow.com. There you'll also be able to get access to earlier shows, read the latest blogs. There's also an opportunity to subscribe to our newsletter, which will give you heads up as to when the next show is coming out, latest events, news, and anything that's going to be relevant to help you have a fun, rewarding and successful career in finance and accounting. And just before you go, we really appreciate your feedback. If there's something we can do better on the show, something that's not working, or something you'd like to see, even a guest you'd like for us to invite onto the show, someone who you think might be able to benefit you more and also the rest of our community, please let me know. You can email me. I'm at andrew@sitnshow.com, or feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Just drop me a message so I know how you found me and we can connect. And really, it's our community that'll make the show. If we keep engaging and driving each other on, we'll keep on building our strength in the numbers. When all is said and done, if we can do the numbers better and finance better, we'll create more opportunities for ourselves, our friends, our families, our communities and our businesses. So until next time, have a good rest of the week, take care, and let's keep building our strength in the numbers.